How did a small village on the Italian peninsula grow to become one of the most powerful empires in history, only to crumble into dust? This is the epic story of the rise and fall of the Roman Empire. Our story begins not with history, but with myth. Legend says Rome was founded by twin brothers, Romulus and Remus, descendants of a Trojan hero and sons of the war god Mars. After being abandoned and suckled by a she-wolf, they returned to found a city. A fateful argument led Romulus to kill his brother and name the city after himself, Rome. While the legend is captivating, the reality is a bit more grounded. Around the 8th century BC, a collection of small villages on the 7 hills along the Tiber River came together. This location was a strategic jackpot. The hills offered natural defense, the river provided a vital water source and a route to the sea, and fertile plains nearby were perfect for farming. This prime real estate gave early Romans a significant head start. For its first 2.5 centuries, Rome was ruled by kings. 7 of them, to be exact, starting with the legendary Romulus. This period, known as the Roman Kingdom, saw the city's initial growth, the establishment of key religious and political institutions, and a lot of influence from their more advanced neighbors, the Etruscans. But the Romans grew tired of absolute rule. In 509 BC, they overthrew their last king, Lucius Tarquinius Superbus, and a new era was born, the Roman Republic. The Republic was a revolutionary concept. Its motto was Senatus Populusque Romanus, or SPQR, meaning the Senate and the people of Rome. Power was shared, not concentrated in one man's hands. At the top were 2 consuls, elected annually, who held executive power. They commanded the army and presided over the government. But they couldn't act alone. The Senate, a body of experienced elders and former officials, held immense influence. They controlled finances, foreign policy, and advised the consuls. And then there were the assemblies where Roman citizens could vote on laws and elect officials. This system of checks and balances was designed to prevent any single person from becoming a tyrant. It was a government for the people, at least in theory. With a stable political system in place, Rome began to look outward. What followed was a period of relentless expansion, powered by one of the most effective fighting forces the world has ever seen, the Roman legions. The Roman army was a marvel of discipline, training, and engineering. The legionaries were professional soldiers, citizen soldiers who were highly motivated to defend and expand their republic. Their organization into flexible units called maniples, and later cohorts, allowed them to adapt to any battlefield. They built roads, bridges, and fortifications wherever they went, literally paving the way for Roman civilization to spread. Over the next few centuries, Rome conquered the entire Italian peninsula. But their greatest challenge lay across the sea, in the form of another mighty power, Carthage. Located in modern-day Tunisia, Carthage was a naval and commercial empire that controlled much of the western Mediterranean. The inevitable clash between these 2 titans resulted in a series of 3 brutal conflicts, known as the Punic Wars. These wars were a struggle for survival. The Second Punic War is the most famous, thanks to one of history's greatest military geniuses, Hannibal Barca. He famously crossed the Alps with his army, including war elephants, and inflicted devastating defeats on the Romans. For a time, it seemed Rome was on the brink of collapse. But Rome's resilience was its greatest weapon. They refused to surrender, raised new armies, and eventually took the fight back to Carthage, defeating Hannibal on his home turf. By the end of the Third Punic War in 146 BC, Carthage was utterly destroyed, and Rome was the undisputed master of the Mediterranean. Conquest brought unimaginable wealth pouring into Rome. Tribute from conquered provinces, loot from sacked cities, and vast new lands created a new class of super-rich Romans. They built lavish villas, threw extravagant parties, and lived lives of incredible luxury, but this new wealth came at a dark price. The backbone of this economy was slavery. Millions of people captured in war were brought to Rome and forced to work on massive agricultural estates, in mines, and as domestic servants. This influx of slave labor drove small, independent farmers, the very soldiers who had won the empire, off their land and into the cities, creating a huge, impoverished, and restless urban population. The gap between the super-rich and the desperately poor grew wider and wider, shaking the foundations of the Republic. Political norms broke down. Ambitious generals, with armies loyal to them personally rather than to the state, began to dominate politics. Violence became a common political tool. The Republic was sick, and its crisis came to a head with the rise of one of history's most famous figures, Gaius Julius Caesar. Caesar was a brilliant general, a charismatic politician, and an ambitious man. He conquered Gaul, modern-day France, adding vast territories to Rome and earning the undying loyalty of his legions. His success and popularity made him a threat to the established order in the Senate. Led by his rival Pompey the Great, the Senate ordered Caesar to disband his army and return to Rome as a private citizen. Caesar knew this would mean his political ruin and likely his death. In 49 BC, he made a fateful decision. He led his legion across the Rubicon River, the northern boundary of Italy. This was an act of treason, an open declaration of civil war. The phrase crossing the Rubicon has ever since meant passing a point of no return. The civil war that followed tore the Roman world apart. Caesar's military genius proved unstoppable. He defeated Pompey and his other rivals, chasing them across the Mediterranean. By 45 BC, the war was over, and Caesar was the undisputed master of Rome. He was declared dictator for life, and it seemed the Republic was well and truly dead, about to be replaced by a new monarchy with Caesar as king. But many senators who called themselves the Liberators believed they were defending the Republic from a tyrant. On the Ides of March 5th 10th, 44 BC, they cornered Caesar in a meeting of the Senate and stabbed him to death. They thought they had saved the Republic. They were wrong. Caesar's death didn't restore the old system. It just created a power vacuum and plunged Rome into another round of bloody civil wars. Out of this chaos, two key figures emerged: Caesar's trusted general, Mark Antony, and his young, cunning grandnephew and adopted heir, Octavian. At first, they allied to defeat Caesar's assassins. But their alliance soon crumbled into a rivalry for supreme power. The final showdown came at the naval battle of Actium in 31 BC. Octavian's fleet, commanded by his brilliant Admiral Agrippa, defeated the combined forces of Antony and his lover, the Egyptian queen Cleopatra. Antony and Cleopatra fled back to Egypt, where they both took their own lives, leaving Octavian as the sole ruler of the Roman world. After decades of civil war, the Roman people were exhausted. They craved peace and stability above all else, even if it meant sacrificing the ideals of the Republic. Octavian was smart. He knew Romans hated the title of king. So he masterfully created a new political system. He claimed to be restoring the Republic, but in reality, he kept all the real power for himself. He took the title Augustus, meaning the revered one, and Princeps, meaning first citizen. He became Rome's first emperor, ushering in a new era, the Roman Empire. The reign of Augustus marked the beginning of the Pax Romana, the Roman peace. For the next 200 years, the empire enjoyed unprecedented stability, prosperity, and expansion. The empire reached its greatest extent under the Emperor Trajan in 117 AD, stretching from Britain to Mesopotamia, from the Rhine River to the Sahara Desert.